When controlling host.
That's right. So I'm just starting to stream on YouTube. Okay, good. And I'll share my screen. Very good. Okay. Call to order this special meeting of the Eastern Reading Region 9 Joint Boards of Education Policy Committee at 9:11 a.m. on November 20th, 2020. Members in attendance, John Stinson, Christopher Parkin, and Maureen Williams. We'll start with the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the November 6th? Thank you, Chris.
Second.
Thank you, Maureen. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye passes 3-0. Very good. That takes us to our next item, public comment. Seeing no members of the public present, we'll move on to item number 4, committee member comment.
Just something that popped into my mind when you call this meeting to order as a special meeting is that we should endeavor to file with the appropriate town clerks our regular meeting schedule for 2021 so that we have agenda flexibility. If we just notice that every Friday will be a regular meeting, that might be a helpful way to continue our work in the year 2021.
I like that. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea that gives us a lot more flexibility. Okay. And do you know our deadline for that? Is that December 31st?
It is January 31st, but as our town clerk advised Reading boards and commissions yesterday, the sooner the better so that your January meetings can be appropriately published as regular.
Okay. All right, good. Excellent. Thank you. Any other board member comment? Okay, very good. That takes us into item number 5, discussion and possible action. Resuming the work of the 3000 series policy revisions in Title IX as appropriate. I suspect we're not going to get into B because I don't think it's sufficiently specific to qualify for a special meeting, but also we'll spend the balance of our time in the 3000 series. So I've already presumed first time.
I'd like that to go in the minutes.
That's right.
The clapping goes in the minutes? Okay, I will note that for the minutes. William
And that it was
clapped.
presumed.
Right.
Mr. Stinson shared his presumed screen.
All right, and I'm just getting down to where we left off last time, which so I thought I was already there, but maybe when I maximized it, shuffled my paging here. Okay, so I think there we go. Okay, so we stopped right here with the policy committee on November 6th. And this is where we talked about the sort of, I think we were actually getting into the specifics of this policy. And I think we had I'm just going to scroll up a little bit so we see sort of the last place that we were focused. So here we're talking about researching the eligibility of the sort of out-of-town transportation. I think there was something, a tax question that we were going to research.
I can't tell you, I remember.
Okay. All right. So let's, I'd like to sort of think about, sort of just for actionability's sake, if we are going to assign this, sort of shall be eligible, shall be provided. So the question about this.
The question is, is it an intentional choice to use language shall be eligible versus shall be provided, or is that just sloppy draftsmanship?
Okay. And the resolution of that question is through finding relevant case law or relevant regulations,
and possibly discussion with Clarence about practice and expectation, because I gather that A is shall be eligible provides the flexibility to instead reimburse families who provide their own transportation.
Yep.
And I wonder if that same flexibility should exist in B.
Okay. All right. So I'm attaching this to Clarence, this comment to Clarence, and we'll say, wondering about our practice here. Is this required by law? the,
Is he going to have the institutional knowledge to know the answer to this soon?
probably not off the top of his head, but I think it's reasonable that he goes to sort of the appropriate, people who would have that institutional knowledge, probably Vicky, and start to sort of do that research and get back to us.
Okay.
Yep. Required by law, the shall versus should this say may? Is that right?
Well, it shall be provided in B versus shall be eligible in A.
Okay. Oh, I see.
There's
really
a
provided versus
determination in A that's being made and no determination in B that's being made.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Good.
This won't confuse him at all to get this random email at 9 on a Friday.
Oh, no.
I think that's the right way. I think that's the right way to bring
At
him
the
into
ER9
policy.
meeting, I did invite him to our policy committee. I informed him that it meets every Friday. And he
Nice.
called again.
It's the right way to suck him into this committee.
That's right. What's this link? Click.
Passive aggressive emails.
That's right.
When he
Once
pops
you're
up
in,
on your
you're
screen
in.
as in the document, you'll know you got him.
Very good. Okay. So we'll continue. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm just gonna clear this comment so that we can make that at the end of this discussion today. Okay. We are, wait for it, 2/3 of the way through the document. Okay. We have a or their designee, which I don't think is controversial.
Mm-mm.
I mean, this gets into a question of, is it helpful to say in our definitional document that superintendent shall always be superintendent or designee?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think there are circumstances where we're going to want just the superintendent.
Absolutely.
So it's like
we could say unless specifically, like we could put in language that is very specific to the superintendent and only the superintendent.
But either way, you're curing for that issue. So you might as well just be consistent and add designee in a bunch of places. You're going to have to fix them all one way or the other.
And I think, especially when we look at the enumerated duties document as a sort of as a whole document, I think we may want to go through then at that point and, with the cross reference and say, okay, like here are the places where it can be the designee and here are the places where it cannot be.
I do think that's a separate analysis rather than doing it definitionally and having it default through the doc. You got to do those
right.
one by one.
Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. All right, good. Okay.
Is this a reg?
It's funny because it is very long and very specific, but I don't see, and this may be one of those places where we lost the headings. I think we're about to see.
At the very bottom, it'll say
Yep.
policy approved or whatever.
Policy.
Yeah, policy.
And you know what? I want to allow for, we're not seeing any comments, but I want to allow for the possibility that people did not get this far. I didn't see anything that said, John stopping here on blah, 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 or Maureen stopping here on blah, blah, blah.
That's because I stopped before here.
Okay. All right. Then we may need to go back up. So, and if Maureen, you stopped before this, Chris,
Oh,
do you know?
definitely.
I don't remember at this point.
Okay. All right. So I think we maybe are going to just shift gears to sort of real-time review as opposed to just reviewing of our comments. So
Because obviously the blanks need to get filled in.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, generally this means, this blank space means that we have reviewed and it's good. But if we've stopped before this, then
Can you open the comments sidebar, and that can kind of tell us if there's a dearth of comments going down?
Yes, indeed. Sorry. I know. Oh, here it is. Comment history.
Well, that's just by date. That's not running the side of the document.
Yeah, so hold on. When we get a view. I
thought there was a way to do that.
thought there was two.
I was
mean,
watching you with captive eyes. Like, oh, how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I've done that. Like just
Yeah, I feel
scroll
like
the comments on the side.
Well, I know, I mean, obviously just scrolling the document,
Well,
but there is another way to see.
Yeah, like a
all-
condensed view of just the document, the comments.
I think that
Is it on the left?
I think it might actually just be this guy.
Maybe.
To this guy. Oh yeah, maybe like a table of content. No,
No, that's just yeah.
right.
Whatever.
Let
Here's an idea.
Let me check this guy out again, right? So this gives us our history of comments in reverse chronological order.
Looks like it.
Okay. Which is handy, but not exactly what we were looking for. View history. No. No, I think unfortunately we don't have.
I mean, I guess the only way to do it is to zoom way out and.
That's true too. Just to give us a quick view, but I think we're probably here.
I think based on what we covered the last 2 weeks ago, we probably also for the next meeting need to go do the deep dive on the things we covered last time and kick the can down the road on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right.
Anyway, proceeding.
Yep. Okay. Do you have any recollection of going through this, the eligibility for school transportation section?
I thought we talked about this with respect to the snowbanks and things.
Briefly.
Yeah.
I think that may be above. Right. This is no line of sight and all that stuff.
Right. This is all punch for further review.
That's right. And this is a particularly thorny one because the question is to whether or not this is actually enshrined in law or this is something that sort of we're imposing on ourselves. If this is in law, this is a massive set of work that needs to be done. Okay. All right. And it may be the kind of thing that was done at some point and we just need to maintain it. Okay. So we definitely touched on this stuff. I think we're moving to this next section here, drilling down to the eligibility for school transportation. Do we want to read or would you want to, you want me to sort of narrate? Anyone have preferences for this sort of real-time review?
No preference. I don't think this section is particularly controversial. I think it's coming from state guidance.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Okay.
And I think that in our communities, the road hazards are going to trump the distances almost exclusively.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, Clarence in the document.
In here.
Good morning, Clarence.
Yes. Any resident of the school district under 21 years of age who is not a high school or vocational. Okay. Okay. Anyone see anything sort of controversial outside of the shall be versus shall be provided? Shall be eligible versus shall be provided?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Appeals, nothing controversial there.
Just, it goes to the principal. I assume that that's an okay level of review.
Okay. All right.
And we don't have a coordinator of transportation per se for subsection B. I assume that refers to a district employee and not the bus company.
Right. So,
I mean, you might just want to say the director of finance and operations or his or her designee, which would be whoever it is overseeing the relationship with the transportation provider, which may from time to time be different.
Right. Sorry, say again. Do we want to say? I mean, we could actually just make a suggestion here to clarify this language instead of commenting.
I would just take out coordinator of transportation or designate and replace it with director of finance and operations or designate, because that's a title that we anticipate still having.
Right. I'm particularly fond of the fact that I am going back and capitalizing, because I have been hammering one of my sons about just capitalize as you go. And now he can watch this recording back. If no
and he would watch this recording back? Well, that's a testament to him.
If no resolutions, okay, good.
Just got to get that subscriber count up so we can monetize this committee.
That's right.
What is the subscriber count? Is it at 0?
Well, this is all being posted on my channel, so it's, it's something like 40 or 50. Just, people who have, watched Between Three Chairs or watched one of the Easton board meetings and said, I want to know right when those are published.
Okay.
We're driving single-digit views on these.
That's right. That's right.
A stenographic record or tape recording, we could amend that language to bring it into the 21st century.
It feels like we can. Hold a hearing within 10 days following receipt such as a hearing before the board of compliance provisions. Can we just say a recording?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I had a dispute in another district in a case about recording by tape.
Mm.
Well, we have to do it by tape. No, you don't.
Right. Okay. Takes us to 3541.44. Board of Education recognizes special, incidental, unplanned, or emergency circumstances. Private vehicles for school purposes.
Why does the district assume no responsibility unless the employee has prior authorization, as opposed to the district does not assume responsibility? I mean, why do we want the district to take on that?
No has prior authorization for such transit. The district assumes no liability. We're saying that if there's an accident while an employee is transporting for one of these reasons, the district does assume responsibility?
If the employee has authorization for the transportation.
How does that work from an insurance? I mean, this is a question about whose insurance pays.
I think it's a question about whose insurance pays, but it's also a gaping hole to the extent that authorization could be implied by conduct, right?
Right. It's implying that in a bona fide emergency, you don't need to get prior authorization.
Right.
But then saying if you did, you're on the hook.
Well, it says if you did, you're not on the hook.
Unless the employee has prior authorization for transportation. There's no responsibility, there's no liability unless there's prior authorization. In which case, what?
Right. In which case, there is liability, would be the...
Right. I just think you would want to be silent on that.
So
leave people to their proof. Don't provide a policy statement that says we acknowledge responsibility if we have authorization.
Do we think there could be some kind of sort of chilling effect on the willingness of an employee to, in an emergency, transport a student to the hospital? If
there's always an emergency doctrine at law, right, that they can fall back on.
Okay.
So.
Right. Have the fact-specific discussion about the bona fide nature of the emergency.
So do we think we want to strike this section because there's sort of no benefit to the district?
I think there's no benefit to the district, and I think you leave people to their proof, right? To the proof of particular circumstances. I don't know what would be considered an emergency. Certainly in a life-threatening circumstance, you don't want to chill things. But does somebody who, needs stitches and doesn't want to get stitches or wait, is that? This also says that it's special, incidental, unplanned, and or emergency circumstances. So the base language is a little bit broad for me.
Well, I think this is, I think because it's covering emergencies and other instances, like the principal is going to use his or her car to drive the two people who are speaking at the Rotary Club to the event that they've all been invited to.
Right. Yeah.
This policy permits that.
What do we think? Do we want to put a comment here for sort of future review, or do we think we bottom out on this by eliminating this sentence and leaving the rest, or?
I'm reading the rest of the language again.
Yep. Yep.
I guess my question is, I don't like the last language either. The incidental, unplanned, or emergency operation of a motor vehicle does not require the operator to hold a special license. Certainly the emergency operation, but the incidental or unplanned. I guess I have some problems with the structure of this, the last sentence too. I keep going to scroll your screen.
Yeah. I do that all the time. So maybe if we highlight this, and I sort of at this to you.
Yeah, we'll think about it
and think about right.
Okay.
Yep. To
all right.
Review and
because it's that cross reference to 4133. It looks like too.
Which is later.
What that policy is.
That'll be later, right? Oh, that's in the 4000 series, right?
Right.
Why would that be cross-referenced in the 4000? Well, we'll see what the 4000 series is.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Same.
Declaratory ruling. Commissioner of DMV. That's a bizarre.
That's the last legal reference. There's some.
That's bizarre. Okay. Deeper dive. Moving on.
Okay. Safety complaints, records and reports. And let's always remember our handy dandy EDD. I'm going to scroll.
I don't think so long as I've been on ER9, I have had any review of complaints.
Yeah, I have never seen anything presented at any board meeting.
Nope.
Yep.
And I know that there have been issues, anecdotally. I just know they haven't been reported, like at that level.
What would the appropriate venue for that, for the delivery of that be?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there a transportation subcommittee on anyone, or?
And there's the Joint Transportation Committee.
Right.
I mean, it sounds like it's just basically a something that if we sit down and create from the EDD, a calendar of reporting obligations.
Yep.
Then maybe it's every year in the June meeting, we look at all bus incidents, and
Right.
it might be a one line that says there were none.
Right.
But
Right.
check the box, and here's the annual summary of reporting, basically.
I completely
Okay.
agree with that. And I think this is exactly the kind of work that's uncovering that.
There are probably a dozen of these.
Right. Yeah, maybe more. Yep. Okay. So we'll move on. And I think for many of these, when we tag them as EDD, we're kind of implicitly tagging them as continued analysis against all the other EDD items. And part of that analysis will need to be how many of these things are required, because I think we're certainly going to find ourselves in a place with the enumerated duties that says there's way too many of these things. How many of these are completely self-imposed and optional? So how many of these are required by law?
And I do think when we do the EDD, it might be a good conversation to include Clarence on, because he has experience from a number of districts into how they handle these obligations.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely. And I think in sort of recent conversation, he's expressed a real interest in sort of professionalizing the practice across the board. And I think this is a major step towards that.
He might already have a form that is used other places to do exactly these things. So.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, agreed. Okay, takes us to school lunch service.
I like those brackets.
I guess you're supposed to check in them. Is that what it was? It was
I
appropriate.
guess, I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, the first paragraph is aspirational, so I think that can go.
Yeah. We will not discriminate in feeding people based on their marital status in 3rd grade.
Right.
no comment.
Who shall be responsible to the business manager?
I wonder about enshrining the second paragraph in policy, because on a semi-regular, probably annual basis, I feel like we have the conversation about participation in the National School Lunch Program and whether or not we want that quarter a meal or whatever it is, or whether we want to go independent like other districts have, incur the additional cost, but create additional flexibility against regulation. And if we're enshrining this commitment, it makes it harder to unwind based on the recommendation of the Food Services Committee.
Okay, so here there's a question about enshrining participation as a part of policy.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you can say that, our policy might be that the boards shall regularly review participation in the National School Lunch Program.
Or any available contributory programs.
Right.
Which subsidize the cost of lunch provided by the district.
Right.
Not just that. I don't know about the special milk program, for example.
Right. It might not exist anymore.
Right.
Like, the National School Lunch Program could, by February, become the Every Kid Eats program. Like,
we'll just call that available state and national programs.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we want to try to draft that language now?
Sure. I don't think this one's that complicated.
Yep. Okay. So I'm making the comment, and then I think we're about to clear it. Provide food service for schools breakfast to the meets nutrition standard required by the. Okay, I see. Alternate language. I mean, are we essentially saying skip the alternate language and add in some content about we'll periodically review?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you can take out your brackets there too.
Oh, but they're
And
so
just
nice.
say provide food service that meets the national standard.
Mm-hmm. Because this is also intended to be a policy that covers all 3 districts. And while Barlow might be in the business of providing breakfast, the middle schools and elementary schools aren't necessarily, and we don't want to create this web.
Do we want to say national, state and national? I mean,
State and national standards for food, well, provides that meets state and national standards, period.
yeah. And then are we going to say boards will periodically review?
Sure.
What's periodically mean?
It's intentionally vague.
Are we saying annually?
Annually, just say annually. Annually is fine.
It can go on our June checklist, which I think we usually do it in the May tri-board when we renew the contract or put out to bid the contract with the food service provider anyway. We have to do the healthy lunch certification and approve the minutes and file the minutes and all that fun stuff.
Boards will annually review and evaluate participation in available.
Sure.
And then that becomes an enumerated duty for the board.
And who is the person to whom is the prospect of, the finances on this assigned? I mean, someone's got to come back and say it makes no financial sense, or it does make financial sense.
Right. I mean, it's got to be the director of finance and operations, right?
Right.
My understanding is that annually in the spring, the food service committee meets and has this discussion with the director of finance and operations, and they review the performance of the program, the balance in the food service account, and make recommendations for the following year.
Okay. Is this sufficient?
Yeah, I think so. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
There's no business manager.
There has been a business manager. That was
Okay. Well, who shall be responsible to the business manager for what?
We don't have a food service director either. He's
right.
I think that the service under the direction of the director of finance and operations.
Okay.
Ultimately, I think that's just sort of period, full stop. And that person typically designates to our business manager, but I want to provide some flexibility for sort of a reorg of those expectations and titles.
Are we going to say or designate?
Yeah.
Sure.
We're cutting that, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Not for nothing, I think when we get to the end of the 3000s, we should have a meeting with Clarence and go over the 2 and 3000s, because if I recall way back when, we had a lengthy conversation about things like inventorying technology.
Yep.
Right.
And would like to kind of regroup on issues like that at a high level with him. So.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe even at the end of the 3000, we're just pulling together all the enumerated duties, because I think that that was one of them, and so we have the opportunity, and that actually just reminds me. I'm sitting here thinking I was going to do something else with this. Good. Okay.
Do we really want, well, I don't know what the process is, but the principal and the school nurse all involved in a decision about whether or not to give someone lunch?
Is it a matter of law?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know.
Why do we have aims here?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? It's aspirational.
Absolutely.
I think the whole aims section goes away.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
It solves for why is the nurse here?
Wherever possible.
Attractive. The
Yeah.
eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
No one would say that Barlow's cafeteria is attractive.
It seems like all of this is.
We'll have storage. We'll have a nice kitchen.
Yeah.
We'll maintain it. This all seems bizarre.
Yeah. This stuff,
Yeah, I don't like 4 either.
like this whole
So I
section.
think,
And I also don't like creating a standard in the next sentence of rigidly maintained. What is rigid
Yeah.
maintenance?
yeah.
I think the second sentence is fine. The district shall maintain proper sanitation
Yeah,
and health standards.
Absolutely.
You don't
I think
need
that's
the
the only
first
sentence that
sentence.
needs to be there.
Yep.
I would take out the whole facility section in the first sentence after maintenance and sanitation.
Agree.
Okay.
I think this is gone.
It's subsumed within the first sentence.
Right.
I do think
It's
there's
implied that
probably
you'll train the appropriate people.
right. I do think that there's probably a requirement that cafeteria workers have a physical
Yep.
exam.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, this is a contracted out obligation because
Right.
cafeteria workers don't work for the district.
Yep.
And cafeteria workers are different from lunchroom monitors because lunchroom monitors do work for the district but are not handling food. So I just want to be careful about
Ah, okay.
definitions and what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and we previously talked about this idea of, so what is our obligation and what should our practice be for evaluating sort of contracted work.
Right.
So I think it would be useful for us to tag those areas that are sort of contracted, so that we can similar to the enumerated duties, it's almost like it's a section of the enumerated duties that is the evaluation of contracted work.
Right, because on the one hand, it is extraordinarily likely that we will continue to outsource this entire function.
Right.
On the other hand, to the event that we ever have a cafeteria worker, we'll need to be compliant with the expectation of physical exams or whatever it is that is presumably required by law, which is why this is in here.
That's right. Right. And I don't think we can outsource our obligation to adhere to law simply by.
Can we say all cafeteria workers
Mhm.
Employed by the district
Yeah.
shall be required to have blah, 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 as
Sure.
requested by the nurse coordinator?
Sure.
But even if we're not hiring them, if there's a law that says that they have to have a physical examination or something else, we don't get over that law simply by contracting out their employment.
I think you make the policy that all cafeteria workers employed by the district shall have da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
All third-party vendors providing food service work to the district shall be required to comply with all state and federal law.
Right. You certainly don't want the district to take on the responsibility to in any way check what the food service
Right.
vendor does.
Yeah. I
vis-a-vis
don't want to
the-
be policing them on their
No.
regulatory obligations.
Yeah,
But
no.
But I do think that would be part of somebody in central office's job to, whether it's annual or quarterly or whatever, to say, here are the 10 things that are required by law, and you need to submit evidence that you're compliant with them.
Right. Show me compliance. It's October 1st. Show me your compliance with this checklist.
Exactly. Okay. What do we also? There was another statement.
We get rid of school medical advisor for nurse coordinator.
Yep. I'm also going to put in another. What did it say before? School medical
Advisor, I think.
advisor. What would we call that document? The glossary of terms? Just in case we missed,
Yeah,
school
if it
medical
shows up
advisor
somewhere
anywhere.
else. The 20-page preamble.
Exactly.
I would like an intern who would go through this document looking for those kinds of things.
Hey, now that's an idea.
No, it's not a bad one.
Yeah, I think we could probably find some juniors at the high school who would be very interested
In policy,
Yeah. I mean, right? There's got to be somebody.
we ask Paula, gee, do you want to give us an intern?
Right.
Are
Somebody
we
you don't-
prohibited in any way from having interns on the boards?
No, in fact, there was some language in our bylaws that was that says we can have student representatives on the board, and they're not.
We have a student rep, but that's not a person who actually does work at the direction of the board.
Yeah.
It's just a person who reports about things going on at Barlow. And I'm
Yep.
more looking for the person who does things like going through the entire document, looking for the term school medical advisor by hand or by a global search.
I don't
Right.
think there's anything that prohibits us from doing that kind of thing. We
I'm going to ask about it and then maybe ask Paula at the high school.
Yeah, maybe we can create an independent study project for the spring semester about somebody who wants to do this, or a credit or something.
that would be incredible. I would have loved that when I was in high school. That would have been cool. Okay, sorry, we digress. All right.
Right. Well, it was a good digression.
Yes. All right. I think we're to the cost of food.
Price of school lunches shall be determined by the school superintendent. Is that really true?
Yeah. I thought we dug in on this a little bit, but we don't have any notes about it.
Or his designee.
Right.
Absolutely, or his designee.
Right.
Yeah. Is it just me? Sorry, maybe I'm reading too quickly. This and this seem to be saying that the superintendent and the business manager maintained under the control. Okay, so controlling versus setting.
Yeah, because this gets into the separate food service fund, which is a compliance issue, from what I understand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the cost of lunch is I guess to a certain extent a function of the vendor contracts with us at this rate, and this is what they're paying their people, and so
Right.
we need to set the lunch cost at a certain rate to make sure that the account is in the black ever so slightly. I mean, I almost want to see the contract with the vendor.
We
That's
said this last time. We wanted
Yeah.
to see the
This is-
contract. with the
Up with
vendor.
the contract, right?
Who would have that? Who would have that?
Well, I mean, I think it's going to be clearance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll need to do an orientation. I don't want to sort of at that for him right now.
He's
So-
still in the document, John. He's still
Yeah.
idle.
If we so it's 9:55. Next week is Thanksgiving. I suspect we're not meeting next Friday at 9:00.
No.
I think we are now coming up right on the 2/3. There's about 50 pages left in this document. I think it's reasonable to say that the following Friday the aim would be that we've all reviewed through the end of the 3000 series.
Okay.
That's
I
how
will put that in the minutes.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop the screen share, and I think we're skipping agenda item 5B, the other policy items, and I think we're heading into public comment. No members of the public being present. Committee member comment.
Just it kind of relates back to plan for going forward. We're looking at December 4th. We'll have the 3000s reviewed individually. realistically, the 4th and the 11th is probably what it's going to take for us to walk through those last 50 pages.
Yep.
That would then set us up for the 18th to have a review with Clarence, theoretically. And then it probably makes sense January 8th, 15th, and 22nd, we can start looking at the tri-board governance stuff ahead of the tri-board meeting on, I think it's January 25th or 6th.
That's
One
great.
of those days I cannot make. I'll let you know. I have
Okay.
some depots scheduled on one of those Fridays, and they're, I think,
Just sort of trying to chart it out a little bit to
Great.
see if that makes sense.
I love that. And then we can make sure that we have the right language for the agendas. And then we should also think about make sure that we're solidifying our sort of regular Friday meetings in the regular
Right,
schedule.
file those with the clerks. And I think if we do get into the tri-board things in January, it would be helpful to give all boards notice that we're having that conversation to the extent they want to be involved in the nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah. Do we have anyone have thoughts about an 8 o'clock versus a 9 o'clock start on these for the regular meetings that we schedule? Is 8 o'clock not good? Is 9 o'clock? I mean, if 9 o'clock is good for everybody, it's fine.
we can move it a little earlier, but 8 o'clock would be for the late night owl of me. That's a rough one.
Yeah, fair enough. We can do with 9.
Yeah, I in the world of distance learning, I am putting kids in front of a screen at 7:30, 8:30, and 8:50.
Yep.
All right, so we're back to 9.
Very good. All right. No further board member comment?
No.
Do I hear a
I
motion?
move to adjourn.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
John, if you could stay on for a second after the recording goes off.
Yep. We are
Or you
adjourned,
can too if you want.
we are adjourned at 9:58 a.m.